talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Yes, that is right. Welcome, everybody, on into the Saturday Night Network for our preseason roundtable here for season 51 of Saturday Night Live, the official kickoff to season 51 beginning this Saturday with host Bad Bunny and music from Doja Cat. And I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk through everything we expect to see this season with my man, Mike Murray. Mike, how are you?
I'm great, John. Happy season 6 to the SNN. Can't believe we're back. If it wasn't for that life-changing pandemic that brought us together, what would we be doing on a Monday night? But we're talking season 51 of SNL. So ecstatic to be back with you.
Yes, thank God for that. But of course, but we are here. And yesterday was actually the official 5-year anniversary of our first podcast. So we are here for our 6th season. I'm very excited to be back here. And joining us for the first time in a while here on the SNN is the incredible Jillian Sederholm from Entertainment Weekly. Jillian, how are you?
Hi, it's great to be back and happy anniversary. I've missed you guys.
Missed you too. Very excited to talk to you and get your thoughts on everything from season 51. So, of course, if you've been following the podcast over the last few weeks, we have done a lot of coverage of the season so far. But this I like to mark as the preseason roundtable is always, to me, like the official start of our coverage. So let's set the table for what we have had here on the podcast and then what we're going to talk about here tonight. So obviously when there was breaking news, we broke it down. We talked about our expectations. We've also had cast member previews running every single day for the last 2 weeks. There'll be a couple more, and then we will have our preseason draft on Thursday night. But tonight we're going to talk about the overarching themes of the season, everything we might see from these new cast members and all of that. So Mike, you've been covering the show in depth for 5 years now. I would love to know how you are feeling overall about season 51 and what you are most excited about.
Most excited for that fresh start we've been talking about since we first started podcasting, season 46, which was an election COVID year and lots in the news to cover. That never changes, but after you have an anniversary season like they did, they went full out. They had the amazing SNL 50. They got some Emmy hardware to show for it. So now I think hopefully in a non-election year, of course, we talk in the political coverage, but that they can have a reinvention that we keep talking about maybe happening. That's what I'm most excited for. And for my role as the stat guy, it's just to see who emerges and who kind of solidifies, because these vets coming back and, 5 newbies, 2 featured players from last year returning. I think it's a pretty open field right now. So the stats will be popping.
Jillian, I feel like there were so many storylines 1 year ago heading into the 50th, how they were going to celebrate this monumental occasion, the 2024 presidential election, which alumni were coming back. There were so many things, and everything in a way feels quieter, but SNL still finds a way to find its way into the zeitgeist because there's a lot happening in late night right now. So I just want to know how you feel overall and what your excitement is for season 51.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a show that I think just proves itself how cemented into pop culture it still is after 50 years. It was a year of celebration and looking back, but at the same time, it's more relevant than ever. People are still always anticipating, like, how is SNL going to handle something in politics, even knowing that they have to catch up a week later after other people have tweeted about it in real time. So I am really cautiously excited about how it is going to capture what's going on right now. I mean, there's been jokes about, Michael Che will make one joke on Update and get the whole show canceled on the first episode. But I am really excited to see how they are going to tackle everything in light of what's been going on with other late night shows and how Trump's been threatening other people. If we get into a Trump versus Lorne Michaels war this season, I am here for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been calling Lorne the King of the North because I think he's holding his ground right now. And I can't wait to see how that's going to play out. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. That's the big macro conversation we're going to be having about season 51 of Saturday Night Live. Let me tell you how our coverage is going to work here at the SNN this season. So in case it's the first time you are joining us here on the network for this season, welcome. We're so excited to have you. We are the home for SNL coverage in podcast land, and we are so excited to be here. We are a giant community of SNL fans from all around the world, and we welcome you to be a part of the conversation. Join us for our live shows. Give us your thoughts, because I think that's what SNL is all about. It's all about getting the fan feedback and how people feel about sketches and talking through these cast members. It is a community-based show, and that's what we're here to provide. So we will be here live after every episode on Saturday night at 1 a.m. to talk through with our hot take show all of the sketches. We'll have panelists. We'll have this live chat that you can join us. It is a great time on Saturday night. Stay up late and hang out with us. Every Monday night, we'll be here for our roundtables. So after this one, we'll have our episode 1 and then episode 2. And we generally talk about how each episode will be remembered in 5 years, 10 years, what the episode really meant, our favorite sketches. We'll go through them. It is a great conversation that we have here on Monday nights. Mike even tells me that's his favorite podcast of the week. And of course, Mike does host our show on Wednesday nights, where he has the By the Number show and goes through all the stats of every SNL episode. So Mike, why don't you tell the listeners what they could expect on Wednesday nights?
Sure. Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, following a new episode, we do a show called By the Numbers, which is every number that you want and possibly could imagine about this show. Because one of the reasons that I continue to love SNL and want to cover it at this level is because it's the only television event that's not a sport that feels like a sport, at least to me anyway. It's happening day to day, minute to minute of how the show gets made. And at 11:30, it goes live. And what we see is what ends up the process of that week to our screens. So with that comes a lot of competition, a lot of collaboration. And how do we judge it? Well, John will talk you through it on the hot take show, the roundtable. Did this work? How do they parody this or satirize that? But there's a whole other side of it. That's the empirical data, the objective, not the subjective. So that's where I come in and do screen time, do appearances, blend them together into a power ranking. So week to week, you see the rising and falling of all the cast members, and it's a ton of fun. And it's kind of looking at SNL through the macro in general, because there's a lot of comparisons to be made of other eras, other cast members. And so if you're into SNL present day and history, that's a really fun show to check out. So please join us on Wednesdays.
It's a lot of fun. I love that you do that, Mike, every single weekend. I get to join you every now and then. We also have some other content happening on our Patreon, patreon.com/the SNL Network. We're the biggest supporters of the network, continue to keep our show going. And one of those is we're going to be doing recaps of season 31 all season long, 20 years later, a look back at the start of a new golden era, or ungolden era, as some people would refer to it. We will also have our feedback shows once a month, where patrons can call in and you can join the podcast by coming in and asking some questions and hanging out with us on our patron shows that we'll have here. So we'll talk a lot more about that as we go throughout the season. But for now, let's dive into some of these topics that we want to get into for season 51. And I think it makes sense. We'll start with the big picture macro stuff and then dive into the micro of Saturday Night Live. So we alluded to it, but I think this is totally relevant to SNL, and that's why we'll get into it here. But the biggest story in late night right now was Colbert's cancellation that happened earlier in, I think it was August. And, his show being taken off the air on CBS after midnight, which was a show that aired after him, was also Taylor Thomason stepped down. They decided not to renew that show. So CBS's venture into late night pretty effectively will be ending at the end of the year. Recently, Jimmy Kimmel, who hosted Jimmy Kimmel Live on ABC, made some comments regarding the shooter of Charlie Kirk, and he ended up getting suspended. Basically, some of the affiliates at ABC wanted to take him off the air. The FCC chairman basically said we could do this the easy way or the hard way. There's a lot of people you can go to hear about exactly what went down with Kimmel. He was suspended from his show. The show went dark for a little bit. He has since come back, and the question of free speech is a major topic in late night. And how that relates to Saturday Night Live is that we're only about 2 weeks later from all of this, and President Trump has basically set his sights on Fallon and Seth with some of his posts, and he said that they're next and they're coming soon. Hasn't directly spoken about Saturday Night Live in a little bit, as far as I know, but that is something that clearly he had many problems with when Alec Baldwin was playing Trump. And I would have to think that SNL will either address this major topic or something will come out this weekend about this. So this is something I think on everybody's mind heading into season 51. Jillian, as somebody who has experience in news and is likely covering a lot of the things I just talked about, how do you feel like SNL will address this, and how will this whole thing affect Saturday Night Live?
I mean, this is what we all want to see. I think that it's a really scary time. I think especially with the Kimmel stuff where we saw the power of the affiliates. Even when ABC said, "Okay, we're letting Kimmel back on," affiliate groups saying, "Well, you're still not going to see him on our station and all of these markets." It showed the power of the people and like calling to advertisers to get them to pull out. So that's good news, but at the same time, they could pull things on a whim. So that's really scary. I do think that, EW or that SNL, I work at EW, SNL has shown that it has a backbone before in light of some of these things. And I think, especially like we said on Update. So I don't see them totally shying away from it. But I think we also have seen Lorne sort of play nice in the past, with some of the people that he's invited on to host and not wanting to completely alienate everyone in the country. So I am interested to see how they tackle it. I don't think that I don't see them buckling though and not addressing these things. I think maybe they won't come out quite as strong as some of us would like them to come out on it. And I'm very curious to see if there is any update to how JAJ tackles his Trump this year. But I think that they will be smart about it. And I think we'll see some witty cold openings, I'm hoping.
Well, what is interesting to me is that I think that after Trump was elected for the second time, SNL completely changed their approach to how they built those cold opens and what they did with JAJ's impression of Trump. It was very meta, very lighthearted in a way that wasn't necessarily going after him. It was more making fun of how senselessly he talks about things. But it wasn't the Alec Baldwin first administration, which was just frankly like built in hatred. It was just a different approach. And I think it was so much so that Trump actually, I think, took a step back and laid off of Saturday Night Live for the last year or so because of that. And now with all of the things that are happening and, the opinion about what really constitutes free speech and will they kowtow to him in any way? I think it's created a fascinating conversation, Mike, about what they could potentially do with this impression and how SNL is going to handle politics this season.
I think when we expect SNL to zig, they don't zag. They do the same thing they've been doing, whether it's Colin and Michael an update or Jadge's Trump that we expected to be maybe age up a little bit or make it more true to like the modern Trump and not like the campaign Trump. But I think the crazy thing, we have a two-time SNL host, two-time president who could potentially end the show. But my hope would be that NBC remains the fortress of free speech and they don't hold back. But we think about they also have the Tonight Show, which is 21 years older than SNL. That's still on the air, Jimmy Fallon. And Jimmy Fallon's been criticized by the left at times for being too soft on Trump. Maybe SNL a little bit too, where Colbert and Kimmel really go at him. And we've seen their fates as of recent. So I think that they will middle it because it is a show that's meant to entertain. But they've been parodying presidents since Gerald Ford with Chevy Chase and, even, doing Jimmy Carter with Dan Aykroyd and so on. So that's not going away. So Trump on a given night might not like something. I bet he'll comment on it, but I'm going to hold my faith in Lorne We Trust and NBC to not bend the knee to autocracy of any kind.
Now, if anybody knows me, they know I'm a Fallon defender, but I will say I don't think SNL will take the Fallon approach. I think that, he barely addressed the Kimmel stuff. I mean, he said that he was happy that he was back on the air and he made some, a couple jokes here and there in his monologue, but nothing to the effect of how Colbert has talked about Kimmel or even Seth in A Closer Look. Like it's been very, just basically like Fallon sort of going on to do his show. And I think that SNL will find a way to address it because, as you said, Mike, they've always found a way to meet the moment. And I think that that is still such an important thing. And the conversation will keep going this week. Kimmel's doing his shows in Brooklyn, so he's going to be appearing on Colbert's show. Colbert is going to be appearing on Kimmel. I think Conan's appearing on Colbert tonight. So, like, there's a lot of things happening in late night that I think is going to propel the conversation forward. My biggest question is, does Lauren decide to go nuclear with this option this week? Because I think he has a chance here, Jillian, that if he wants to, he could bring Colbert and Kimmel onto the show. They're both in New York. There's a way to get them on Update this weekend. Do you think he does that?
Oof, I would love for him to do that. I don't know if he does it. I think I would be a little bit surprised if he goes that fully in, but I'll be really impressed if he does.
It'll be a massive story, Mike, if they brought them both on to Update with Jost and Shay and did something with that. Colbert was a former writer at Saturday Night Live, so I think there is that connection there. Kimmel's never appeared, but still, this could be something huge.
I think that would be perfect, John. So if they do that, shout out to you, because that just already sounds like those Trump freezing tableaus. If you have, dueling monologues of Kimmel, Colbert, you bring out Conan, let's get Letterman in there. Let's get everybody in there. Let's get the super, Avengers of late night in there, and then have, JAJ come in and just ruin everything, as Trump canceling everybody. Let's get Colin and Michael out there. It seems like it's kind of now or never. And when we have these premieres, sometimes it feels like, I remember last year where trying to comment on Brat Summer and trying to comment on, Barbie too late a couple years ago. And so maybe they still try to do that because there's so much to address in pop culture that's not political for the rest of the night, other than Cold Open and Update. But I would hope that this Cold Open, which can almost guarantee put all your chips down that it will be Trump, that they do something about late night, because this is a show that just celebrated 50 years of being on the air and doing satire and doing political commentary, that if not now, then you got to go for it right now, for sure.
And I think the entire comedy community is just waiting for Saturday Night Live to see how they're going to address this on the weekend. So it's going to be fascinating. I think it's a huge theme coming into the season. The other major one, which is, lighter, is that we are coming off the 50th anniversary of the show. And as mentioned, there was a lot of things that were going into that, a lot of topics that we just naturally had to talk about going into the 50th, how they were going to celebrate this, half century of SNL. And now all of that is gone. Yes, on October 11th, it is the official 50th anniversary of the show, and they're bringing in Amy Poehler. But overall, I mean, they're not necessarily planning any big celebrations. We're not doing the whole red carpet, bringing back all of the former cast members, a special, all of that. And it sort of makes the cast and the current people in the building all the more important as we return to some normalcy, Jillian. So how do you feel like the show is preparing itself for 51, in the shadow of what we just did in the 50th?
Yeah, I think the show has to begin laying ground for what it's going to look like in the future. And as much talk as there were about cast shakeups, and is it literally a shakeup or is it not? I mean, as sad as I am to see everyone go, I was hoping for a bigger shakeup. I'm devastated about Ego, but for otherwise, I was like, yeah, clean house. Let's get the people who have been in there and proving themselves as newer cast members. Let's have them be the new senior players, and let's have a whole new cast in there and see what they can do to really find the future of this show. So I'm a little bit disappointed that didn't totally take place, and that we do have so many people still hanging on so that it won't feel completely fresh. But I think that it's going to have to find a way to feel fresh without feeling like a completely different show and losing everything that people are tuning in who love it for the nostalgia. But I really want to see what these new players have to offer. I hope that they really are given a chance in the way that some of the people who just exited really weren't, and to see what the show has to say. Because I think you see someone like Marcelo, he was able to really find his footing there easily and really make a mark and do some things that we haven't seen before. And I would really like to see that from him continuing and kind of the way that Bowen also did, but I want to see that from our new cast members.
Mike, we have the same amount of cast members that we did last season. We'll talk about all the additions and subtractions in a few minutes, but we also have to account for the fact that we had Maya Rudolph and Andy Samberg and Dana Carvey and Mike Myers, like not just there for special moments, but they're on regular episodes week to week. And that obviously does have an effect on cast members where they lose the opportunity to make their mark on the show. I think that there's more runway for people in season 51. How do you feel about it overall?
Well, that was the funny thing about By the Numbers last season, was that there was so much more parity, again, Parity, amongst the cast, that we were impressed the whole time that it was very even, very much like Bowen Yang told you, John, right? That there wasn't really a star, even though the stats clearly showed that the star is Bowen Yang, and Colin Jost gets the most screen time of anyone through Update. So although we had the cameos and even like pseudo cast members like Maya, Andy, and Dana early, and then Mike Myers, like you mentioned, there was still plenty of room for everybody to play in the sandbox. So we have to hope that continues this year, because we saw people have some decent moments like Emil Wakim or Devin Walker, Michael Longfellow, and they were not brought back. So you can only just have that hope going in for these folks, these 5 rookies, kind of like the season 39. We had all those new rookies, and I think that kind of left an impression. I don't want to be too dramatic that it's like some issue that the show has, because that's kind of the nature of the beast. But when you have that many new people, you go, okay, well, who should I not get attached to, because they're going to be one and done. And we've seen a few one and dones since we've been podcasting. So I think that overall, everyone has to just bring their A game. I mean, you see vets like Heidi Nego leaving, and you go, all right, well, here's my shot to be the next Heidi Rego, or maybe this is Bowen and Chloe Fineman's last year. That you can't wait on the bench on SNL, really. It's impossible. You have to get in the mix early and get your name out there. So for those new folks, that's all I can hope for them, and give them a chance.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm really excited to see the cast actually just get the breathing room that they didn't get, even though that they still had their moments and it was very even across the board. I think that they have more of a chance to succeed or fail in season 51. And I think ultimately that creates a more exciting show for the viewers to see that happen. So that is something I'm really looking forward to this season. Mike, do you want to jump in on something?
And just to kind of bridge the two topics we just discussed, is ratings are king, right? So SNL is a high budget production on NBC. It's a valuable property for them. But, when Colbert was canceled, you have one side saying this is a FCC or free speech and the merger, and it's all politically motivated. Then you have the other side saying that it's losing money, and, who knows what stats are real. I certainly don't. But you don't want that conversation to come in with SNL when we know it's a big budget property and it employs a lot of people. A lot of people's livelihoods depend on it. But when it comes to like dollars and cents, people can go, well, look at the ratings and all that stuff. So you're going to hear that from a certain side. So you want to get the ratings up. And by doing that, you do go political. You get eyeballs on it. And Lorne, he'll do whatever it takes for ratings. And we love it. Some people don't, but that's kind of the name of the game this season. Although we had a victory lap season that was awesome, whatever it takes, you got to get eyeballs on the show. It's maybe more important than ever, not to be dramatic.
And I think you do that also by bringing in cast members who have a significant online following. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But yeah, let's get into these cast members. So if you're just catching up on what happened, let's just say you're one of those SNL fans that tunes into the postseason roundtable and jumps back into the preseason roundtable. Let me tell you what happened over the last few weeks. So first, we found out that Devin Walker was leaving the show. He is a cast member that was on for 3 seasons, and I believe it's come out that it was like sort of this like mutual departure, but he is no longer there. I believe the following day that we found out that Emil Wakim and Michael Longfellow were not asked back, and then the news that Heidi Gardner would not be returning to the show happened. So we had 3 of the more Jr. and one of the more senior cast members. And then very recently, Ego Wodem decided to leave the show. Between Ego leaving and Heidi leaving, there were 5 new cast members that were hired. So we have Tommy Brennan, who is a stand-up from Minnesota. We have Jeremy Culhane, who has an improv background, performed at UCB, and is also on Dropout. He's from California. Ben Marshall, you may know from Please Don't Destroy, which is another big storyline that happened over the last few weeks where PDD broke up on SNL. John Higgins no longer at the show. Martin Herlihy stays in the writer's room. Ben Marshall joins the cast. Ben now as a part of that. Cam Patterson, a big hire in terms of name recognition. He's on the live comedy podcast Kill Tony, and there's a huge following there that he brings into the show. He's going to be in Kevin Hart's new Netflix movie 72 Hours that also features Ben Marshall and Marcelo Hernandez, and he's from Florida. And then Veronica Slowakowska, who was almost on the cast last season. She came very close to getting in for season 50. She is now hired for season 51 and brought in, and she is known for a lot of viral TikToks and Instagram reels. She's appeared in Tires with Shane Gillis and What We Do in the Shadows, Canadian. Very excited to have her on the show. So those 5 new hires bring some fresh blood into the show. Mike, who are you the most excited about, and how are you feeling about these cast changes overall?
I'm very much in agreement with Jillian that I was ready for that overhaul. And then Lauren alluded to, maybe he used that word or a different word, and I think recently he maybe said in a separate piece that about getting younger. And I was like, I need to get a stat on that. Right, John? So I'm like, is this cast younger? Cause I'm like, okay, like looking at who left and who comes in. And like the finale last year, average cast age 35.5. Premiere this weekend, cast age average 34.6. So we're 1.1 years younger, about 400 days, but who's counting? So we really didn't get that like youthful boost or like a lot of early mid 20 somethings. And then we kept the Jost, Che, Keenan, Mikey Day up top. So it's not like we got some infusion of like Gen Z into the room. So that's something that, I should nip that in the bud, because it's not like we're going to get this kind of TikTokified, apathetic Gen Z meme culture just because of the new blood in there. But, maybe there'll be some of that. So just wanted to put that out there, John.
Well, that's a really interesting stat, only in that perhaps the real stat to follow, which is not to discount your work, Mike, but the real stat is the fans, or the average age of the fans of these people, because it is possible that when you get people like Cam and Veronica, Jeremy, the fans of their work happen to be much younger than, like Heidi or Egos or Longfellow, like people who are traditional stand-ups who maybe go on the road. Like there's a lot of probably teenagers and younger people who follow Dropout, who watch Veronica's reels. So I think it's actually maybe like a misconception that it's the actual age of the cast members that maybe he's referring to, but maybe he's more referring to like bringing younger viewers into the show in that sense.
Totally. And to answer your question, the cast member I'm most excited for definitely is Cam, and he's the youngest one. So he's, 26 and a half. So like talk about someone like he's basically like Jane Wickline's age, or, when she joined, she was about 25, I believe. So somebody like that. And speaking of FCC hints and stuff, like Cam uses a lot of adult language. So I think SNL might want to be even more careful than they ever have been about not pissing off the FCC. So Cam has to definitely practice his pieces on the update desk to not break those violations in his style. But I'm excited to see him because we've had some success and failure with stand-ups joining the cast. And when you have somebody who feels a little risky or daring, I think it brings the best out of the show. Whether you like his comedy or you don't like it, it's something that I look forward to in the show in its 51st year.
Yeah, Cam's more about that FUCC than the FCC. Jillian,
careful.
Jillian, who are you most excited about joining the show, and how did you feel overall about all of these departures we got in the last few weeks?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if it's cheating to say I was really excited about Ben when we first started hearing the rumors that one Please Don't Destroy person is going to join the cast. I was like, please, Ben. I really just want to see how he does on his own as a cast member. So I am excited to see that. Veronica was the only other one that I was pretty familiar with going in. So I'm looking forward to her. I feel like she could be an Ashley and sort of find her ground pretty quickly and really fit right in. Cam, yeah, he's a wild card. And I really like when the leaks started coming out that it was going to be him because they were so many leaks. I was like, oh, there's no way. You always hear about these leaks and then it's never that person. SNL doesn't like you knowing who's joining before they join. And then when it was true, I was pretty shocked. So I think, I mean, like the FUCC nature of it, I think is what makes the show really exciting to watch live. And it does. I mean, like the Miss Eggy moment, like taught us that if you don't watch this show live, even watching the YouTube clips, you're missing out. Like you have no idea what fully happened in the live broadcast. So that does make it exciting when you have someone who could do anything. So yeah, but I'm really excited to see how they all end up working together and how they end up fitting in with the other cast. Because I think when we're talking about the ages of the cast members, you've seen how someone like Colin and Sarah can suddenly like have such a great relationship and play off of each other so well. So that kind of thing does excite me of who are you not going to think fits in with a similar type of comedy, and they really let the younger generation shine and give them that platform and are fine being a maybe background player or at least not the lead player in the sketches that they come up with.
Jillian, I think the other major thing with the cast is that the gender dynamic feels really different. And I know it's only like one, I think there was 6 women last year, so that's only 5. But like the fact is just if you remove Joseph and Shay, we got 10 men, we got 5 women as part of the regular cast. That's double. And it just feels very reminiscent of some of the older eras of the show where they would only have 3 women as a part of the cast and a lot of men. And I find it like a little bit of a strange like thing to go into the season with, let alone the fact that there's no Black woman on the cast, which I'm sure was not ideal for them given Eggo's leaving the show and they had no successor planned for her, let alone hiring more than one. So it is, there's a lot at play here in terms of both gender and, race dynamics as well here at the show. So how do you feel about how it's going to look in 51?
Yeah, that is disappointing to me, especially not having a Black woman on the cast. I think also sexual orientation, like we just lost Celeste from the writers. And I really loved what they were doing and the stuff that Bowen was doing. And he's really carrying a lot of weight on his shoulders now. So yeah, I hate that SNL keeps falling into, oh, we just have to have one person of this type and they can just play any character of that type. It's like, no, that's why you have several Black women and allow them to shine doing different things. And, losing Emil and we don't have somebody fitting into, the one type that he was allowed to play when he was doing impressions and things. That is really a bummer. And obviously I would love to see more women. And I think like SNL has had such great eras of really strong women, and like seeing Amy Poehler come onto this show and not having a really strong stable of women who can, are given the opportunity to hold their own there, that is really a bummer.
It definitely is. And Mike, I feel like just looking at things analytically, I almost feel like, just when we're going to be talking through by the numbers this season, it's almost like 2 different shows are watching, like what the men are doing versus what the women are doing. I know they're going to be interacting in sketches with each other, but the men, it's like all bunched up and you don't know who's going to rise to the top. But the women, in a way, they have more room to do things on the show on a nightly basis because they have less competition. So is there a potential benefit for them, or is it just truly a shame that we just don't have the proper gender dynamics that we need in this cast?
Well, both.
Mike, I don't know if we can hear you. Hold on. I think your mic muted. So let me just try and get that back going in a second. Mike, you want to do a quick test? All right, not sure if we have you. Okay, but yeah, I am very excited to see what's going to happen on By the Numbers this year, where Mike will go through all of the stats on a week-to-week basis and talk through the screen time, because clearly it's going to be fascinating to see. Now, Jillian, I'll go to you while we wait for Mike to get back to us with some of the sound here. But I think that there is also an interesting dynamic among the women where you have Sarah and Chloe as those repertory players. And then you have Ashley, Jane, and Veronica, who are more in the featured status. And because there's only 2 women who are veterans at the show, which one of those 3 featured players between Ashley, Jane, and Veronica, or maybe more than one, ends up fitting in and being in more sketches? Do you have any sense on that?
I think we already saw Ashley like really seamlessly start to fit in and play kind of characters that Heidi was playing. We didn't get to see her go quite as broad and kooky, but I think she has it in her, and I would really like to see her challenge to do that and carry some sketches. And yeah, and I think like from what I know of Veronica, I think she can also do that same kind of thing and impress us there, and maybe be more of a like the Chloe, even though we still have Chloe. So yeah, and I really hope and anticipate that Chloe will help and Sarah will sort of be mentors. It doesn't feel like quite the cutthroat dynamic as we've seen in some past years, where it's like, you know, every moment of these other people's screen time is a moment away from me. I think they probably felt much more like that with the alums who are coming back to constantly lead every sketch. So I'm hoping that they will kind of bond together and write for each other, write like sketches that have every female cast member in it. I would love to see that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there for the women that we do still have.
Mike, we were about to talk about the difference between some of the men of the cast and some of the women of the cast in terms of their ability to produce at the show and which sketches are available to them. How do you feel like you're going to look at it analytically?
Well, I was just thinking about the point you raised about the competition being lessened for the women because there's less of them in the cast, so there's more room to you need 3 women in a sketch. You have to grab 3 of the women in the cast. It's not like 3 out of the 8 or 3 out of the 7. And we went through an era where I think the women dominated the show with Kate, Adie, Cecily, for sure. That it was like, this is not only a new era of SNL, but it kind of seemed like an era that we wouldn't be leaving. Maybe they wouldn't dominate the show the way that men dominated the show with the Farley and Sandler era, but it seemed like this is just kind of like how the show will be now, which is great, and there's always room for everybody to shine. But I was also thinking about Kristen Wiig, because when she came in and it was like being a castmate with Amy and Maya, and then it became kind of the Kristen Wiig show when it became a female-led sketch, because you had, of course, Sandberg, Hader, and Sudeikis taking off at the same time. But Kristen Wiig really became the like archetype of a success for a woman on SNL. So that is one thing that could be happening with someone in the cast or someone who just joined the cast. So that's interesting to watch. But it's I was just about to say it's I think it's limiting though, because talking about not having a Black woman in the cast, it's not about checking a box or a quota. It's that, what do you do now? Like we talked about having Kamala Harris impression and not going to Ego, but it's like, okay, well, Maya's so good at it, bring her in the building, it's great. But there's just so much comedy that you maybe can't do, and I feel like for writers, that's just such an impediment to not have a Black woman to play a lot of roles. So it just feels like a really poor managed decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, I don't think they thought that Ego was leaving, and that's not a justification for them not hiring some of the Black women that auditioned for the show. But yeah, they clearly are in a bind right now, and I'm very curious, just because there is precedent. There's a lot of history with Saturday Night Live and how they've approached hiring Black women in the past. If they do hire one mid-season, that'll be something that, of course, we'll be watching here on a week-to-week basis. I'm very curious how they're going to approach certain sketches that would lean towards having a woman of color in them, and if they just forego doing them because you do have what we expect there to be women of color in the writers' room, and how do they feel like they're going to be writing those things? I think that's something that we're definitely going to be watching this season as we go on. For your Kristen Wiig point, I think that's what is interesting about that is that Kristen to me is like a generational talent, right? She comes in and she does that all on her own. If she was a lesser cast member, you could easily say that she doesn't end up becoming the face of that show or one of the faces of that era. So, right now, I think we are looking at the face of the show to be one of two people. It's really Bowen or Marcelo. Like, I think you look at those two things, and because they're both men, I find it interesting that there are so many of them, because it's so different than what we saw in the Wig era, where she was able to dominate as being one of the only very strong women at the show. Even though there were others there, she clearly rose above the pack, versus this time when we have some of the faces of the show being men, but yet there are so many men at the show. It's definitely a different dynamic here that we're seeing in this era, Jillian.
Yeah, definitely. But I was just thinking, like, I'm happy that it's the white guys that are gonna have to battle it out for who's the lead of this sketch. I'm happy to see it, because I think that Marcelo will have a really strong opener with Bad Bunny. We've already seen them work together in the past. There is so much politically that they can make statements on together. So I am really excited for that. And I think Bowen, I'm predicting that this will be his final season. I don't have insider knowledge, but just from the way he's been speaking. And I think that he's the kind of person that will just have a lot of fun with it, maybe have a lot of input on the kind of hosts and musical guests that he'd be really excited to see and work with. And when it is one of those people, to really have some fun like he did last season. So I am looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I do wonder, if as we transition over from the cast to the headliners that were booked for the show here, if some of the consideration with who was booked as headliners for this first month was to have some extra women in the building to be able to play some of the roles. So even though that this, season may be pretty cast heavy and we booked headliners that are very familiar with the show, you have Doja Cat there on week number 1. You have Amy Poehler, and I would assume is Amy Poehler in Friends for week number 2. Like, I think you're probably getting a Maya, a Tina, like you're getting them in the building. So you have that extra stuff there. And of course, Sabrina Carpenter doing double duty on week 3. So I think that may end up being a pretty big theme over the next few weeks. But overall, Mike, do you think that was strategic in mind when they decided to book Bad Bunny and Doja Cat for the premiere, then week 2, Amy with Role Model, and week 3, Sabrina Carpenter double duty?
As far as the cast dynamic that we have currently, I'm not sure.
Do you think that they considered when they were booking the headliners that maybe they would fill some spots in with, from what they were missing from the cast?
I would say probably not. I feel like the names that are on that list are, especially Bad Bunny, Sabrina Carpenter, are like hugely popular right now. And it goes back to the ratings thing. And they're both very recent and successful friends of the show. We saw Sabrina Carpenter open SNL 50. Bad Bunny is literally doing back-to-back episodes as the MG of the ScarJo finale last year and now hosting the premiere. So I think those are like, if you were trying to predict the episodes, I would definitely put Bad Bunny, Sabrina Carpenter, at like the best odds to hit that bet. And then Amy Poehler is probably like just such a safe choice because she's going to kill it and everyone's going to love working with her. So there's kind of like a very low risk to open the season. And covering the show on this podcast, we've talked about these kind of stumbling into seasons that have not been too strong, and they've kind of got their footing around, the late October into the Christmas show. And they've kind of like really gelled. So this is probably just a great way to start the season. And if it ends up being that they can borrow some Amy Poehler friends or Doja Cat for a sketch, then great.
I think you used the word safe at some point in what you just said. And that's how I felt about these headliners overall. I am excited to see what we're going to do here with them, Jillian. But, for me, just having people who are already in the building that understand the show. Bad Bunny is hosted before in season 49. He did double duty. Amy has obviously been a longtime cast member and has hosted twice before. And Sabrina Carpenter opened up the 50th, was a musical guest on the Jake Gyllenhaal episode. Clearly, they all have experience at Saturday Night Live. So I think that, is it possible that part of the decision to bring these people in also is just that with the new dynamic in the cast, the season could have started really shaky if you had a first time host, but with having these people who get the show, maybe we start off a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I don't know if it was completely to fill the slots. But I mean, like you said, we didn't know. They didn't know that Ego was going at the time. But I mean, I do always like when the first host is someone who has a little more experience with the show, whether it's an alum or someone maybe entering the Five Timers Club, because I do like a little bit of safety in that premiere because there's so many other things that are could go any way. But yeah, I mean, I think Sabrina Carpenter was the one I was maybe a little bit disappointed just because I mean it's doing double duty. It'll be interesting. Like she's really solid. I think it'll be a good episode, but it did feel like, oh, we just had so much Sabrina Carpenter on the show. Let's let it breathe a little bit. Bad Bunny, the fact that he was just announced for the halftime show does make that a lot more exciting because I was also like, as much as I want to see him in that slot, I don't know if I needed him to be the premiere host. But now, given everything, I'm really excited to see him as a premiere host. So yeah, I don't know if they put that much thought into it because it's also names that I mean, maybe it's a little easier to get Amy being a friend of the show that they could call anytime, but with Sabrina and Bad Bunny, it's still people that you got to book them in advance. So I don't think it was like a quick call of, hey, we've got a bunch of new cast members or we're missing this kind of person. We need you. But I do think that they are going to need, I mean, I need them to hire a Black woman for the cast. It could be a late addition. That's fine. As long as they avoid the way that they did it in the past. But until then, I would love to see more Black women as hosts and as musical guests. I would love to see Regina Hall. I think like she would have been perfect now, maybe when she's Oscar campaign season comes around. But I definitely am looking for them to maybe be a little more strategic in the hosts and guests that they are booking for those reasons and for ratings reasons. Like I don't like, I understand like you need to make some decisions based on ratings, but I would much rather them be for reasons that are exciting, I guess, or that's where you pump in all of the alums versus bringing them in to fill all the cameo spots versus the Elon Musk kind of hosting for ratings grab.
Yeah, and I also kind of think, if we're just being honest, between all of our friends here on the podcast, I think SNL got a little lucky with all of the things that are happening in late night that has sort of carried the conversation away from Ego leaving the show and some of those diversity issues in the cast, because we are so locked into it that we do notice it. But I think that there's just so many things that we're excited about for the next few weeks that it's become less of a topic of conversation. I'm just curious, like how quickly the general public is going to notice it when they're watching the show starting this weekend. So with these headliners that are booked for the first few weeks, I want to transition over to our final segment that we tend to do here on our preseason roundtable, which is some predictions. These are just fun things that we talk about coming into the season. So I will start with these headliners here, Mike, and I'm going to ask you, out of these first 3 episodes, which episode do you think is going to be the most remembered by the fans? The one that people are talking about it being like, yeah, that was the one that started season 51.
Definitely when Taylor and Travis show up on the Bad Bunny episode, for sure, because
where are the Chiefs playing this weekend?
It doesn't matter. I mean, Taylor's has Life of a Showgirl coming out, and she's doing Seth and Tonight Show, so she's going to be promoting herself on NBC properties. Huge fan of the show, friend of the show, and fan of the show. And Travis Kelce as well. Travis Kelce also just worked with Bad Bunny and Happy Gilmore too. So if he didn't know him before, now he does. And it'll just be an easy promo for everybody. Everybody gets the beak wet. So I'm looking forward to that. And just what a great way to get the first real appearance, because the New Heights podcast is pre-engagement. Let's get the first really kind of public one on the 8H stage. So that's my answer for excitement or ratings or any of those kind of things.
Okay, so looking at the schedule, I don't think that we're going to have Travis at the show this weekend. He has a Monday night game in Jacksonville. I think they practice on Saturday. So that's...
I guess I didn't really mean the two of them together. I just mean that Taylor addressing it or in some way. Because he's in NFL season. He's not gonna just all of a sudden be there before a game day. But I mean that Taylor Swift presence entering a new Taylor era and being the newly engaged Taylor Swift and kind of just Travis Kelce of it all, because it just would make sense for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, she's going to be on Fallon on, I think it's the 6th, and Seth on the 8th. And I think they tape Seth's show. She probably is going to do back to back. So I would assume that she's like the options there for her to show up this weekend. So that's
Monday, Fallon, Thursday, Seth.
I just wonder if they tape that earlier on, but that's an interesting one that we'll keep an eye out for. But yeah, no, that's an interesting call there. Jillian, for you, which is of the first 3 episodes do you think will be the most exciting?
I think even though we just said let's move past the 50th and yada yada yada, I am still excited for the Amy show and who ends up coming with her, because that is the official anniversary, and then we can finally say goodbye 50th anniversary after that. So I am excited to see what happens there. I think we usually get a lot of guests with Sabrina Carpenter too. She brings in a lot of friends. But yeah, I think right now I am most excited for the premiere, just to see who they do bring out, and I do want to be surprised.
I think that I am most excited for the Amy Poehler episode. If you know me, I'm a huge Amy fan, so I am very pumped to see what is going to, happen with her. Are they going to address the official 50th anniversary, or are going to get some clips of George Carlin walking down the stairs for the premiere? I think that's what most excites me. I know that we had a big season full of cameos and special surprises, but I do think it is nice to get that, and then we can continue to move back on into regular things with the Sabrina episode. But that's the one I think we'll be most talking about. I think Sabrina is going to do a great job as host. Bad Bunny clearly was hilarious when he appeared and stuff in the Jake Gyllenhaal episode. So I think we're really set up for some good momentum to start this season. So I can't wait for all of that. I want to talk about some of the segments of the show and what we see happening with them this season. So we did a lot of politics talk earlier on in the episode, but overall, the cold opens this season. Do either of you have any strong feelings about how SNL will go about their cold opens in season 51 and what you would like to see from them this season? So Mike, I'll start with you with the cold opens.
Well, we're going to see James Austin Johnson a lot. That's the easy prediction. So get that one out of the way. Lots of Trump coverage. I'm sure they'll probably try to introduce some new characters in this administration, for better or worse, that we will see. So that could be some opportunities for some cast members to get in there. We saw Kate McKinnon really run with that, and Cecily at times. So that could be a good opportunity. As far as like the content, it's kind of like my point I made earlier. I hope they don't really hold back. Just do what you want to do. Don't really think about the ramifications, because SNL is, bound by the same rules as everybody else, and they're going to be careful. But if James comes in to the writer's room this week and he says, this is my new Trump hook, I say, let him do it. Don't try to say, let's do the same thing again. But as I mentioned, I think with the Joe's cold open writing, which is at times very strong, I'm not really anticipating a new edge, but I'm hoping for one.
Jillian, anything else you were looking forward to seeing in the cold opens this year?
I'm looking forward to somebody taking on RFK Jr. that's not Alec Baldwin returning every week to play him, but I'm hoping that one of these cast members can really come in strong. And yeah, I'm would love to see some of these cast members do, like you mentioned, Kate McKinnon, and really taking on some characters and leaving them in the cast, but really making them their own. Yeah, I really don't want to see consistently alums, or not even alums, special guests dominating. Like once in a while for a surprise is really fun and exciting, but I don't want them to come in and just take over all of those roles, especially every cold open, the way that we've seen in some recent election years.
Yeah, I would say that I think that Trump is going to be a huge, or James is Trump is going to be a huge part of the season, no doubt. I would say the over-under is probably 14 and a half cold opens this year. Is that a good place to put that, Mike?
Definitely, yeah. But basically 2/3 of the episodes.
I would say that. I think that if I have one wish, I do. I know we got Pete as Hegseth last year. I think, in a way, one of the things that
Andrew. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I guess Pete. Yeah, I meant Andrew as Hegseth. But I think that one of the things that really worked in the first administration, just with the cast members, but not the alumni, was building out the world a little bit more. And I do think that there's enough characters that are there that we can get some of them, into the sketches a little bit more. I know we had Mike as Elon, but I think there's other ways to incorporate some of the cast members into political impressions, especially some of the new people. I think that's a great way to get to know them better. So that is what I was be most looking forward to from the cold opens. Monologues, I think we all feel pretty good about, so we don't have to dive into too much there.
Make a prediction, John.
Okay, go ahead.
Mikey Day as Brendan Carr, the FCC head.
Oh yeah,
and maybe give Veronica Christy Nome.
Okay, I got a prediction for the cold open. How about this weekend? Kimmel as Brendan Carr. Could we do it?
Why not?
All right, it seems like a layup, but we'll see what happens. But yes, I think that's an interesting one. Let's talk about some of the live sketches that we expect to see this season. Are there any cast members whose live sketches you are most looking forward to seeing this season, Jillian?
I mean, I definitely want to see a Domingo, but I don't want to see it every other episode. I don't want it to become a played out character. But I am looking forward to that. Yeah, I mean, I really would love for some people to have, I don't love recurring characters when they become a crutch, and I don't want another season of Overboard on them, but we went so many seasons where we had very few, and then it did really build anticipation of, I can't wait for Mrs. Rafferty because I haven't really seen. And I was a big Chad defender. I was happy every time I saw Chad, as long as it wasn't too many in a season. So I am really excited for something that we haven't seen yet. I really want Bowen to go as overboard as possible with his weekend update characters. And I would love for Sarah to take on some kookier things like the way that she has in some of the digital shorts and weekend update. I would love to have her do some recurring characters that are in that same vein, or do take over that 10-1 spot of just weirdness.
Mike, are there any live sketches that you are excited to see this season, or any cast members performing them?
Gotta go with AD, Andrew Dismukes. I think that as much as we're doing our job right now, you, Jillian, and I talking about what we probably will see and all that stuff, and it really is about the bread and butter of just live sketch. SNL could have aired in the late 70s, early 90s, and Andrew Dismukes is the guy to do it. To do what if I did a sketch about the board game Jumanji right now, or what if I did the dating show with Indiana Jones played by Jack Black, or the Joker wedding sketch with Jack Harlow, things like that, which could be done anytime. They're evergreen, and they feed us the real SNL fans who aren't just the clickbait fans. So that's my selfish and honest answer, is Andrew Smukes. And I was about to say Sarah Sherman as well, because I want to uncork the squirm again.
I completely agree with those choices. I'm also very excited for Ashley Padilla to have more opportunity to perform in these sketches. I think that she always killed with lines in sketches last year, in those live moments where we're like, okay, the sketch was just okay, but Ashley's line was killer. And I think she has more room to really grow in these live sketches this season. I'm also very excited to see how both Veronica and Jeremy do as rookies in these live sketches. I think with them both having these sketch performing backgrounds and seeing how those translate, those are the things I'm most excited about, to see this new nucleus of young talent appear in the live sketches. That to me is something that I think on Saturday night I'm going to be most anticipating. Let's talk about the pre-tapes this season. So a major storyline is there's going to be no Please Don't Destroy, even though we've gotten less of them over the last couple of years. In none of that this season, we expect to have a PDD video with John Higgins no longer being at the show and Ben now being in the cast. Dan Bula was also doing some shorts last season. I believe he's touring with Sandler in the fall, so I don't know exactly when he's coming back to Saturday Night Live. But the expectation right now is we don't have a lot of pre-tapes that are set and standard in the way that we had with the digital shorts, then translating to the Good Neighbor stuff with Beck and Kyle. And then eventually, we're getting music videos with Pete Davidson and Chris Redd, and then over to PDD. I feel like we have a completely blank slate now for music videos or for pre-tapes, Jillian. So what do you think we're going to get for pre-tapes?
Yeah, I am a little worried about that. I really hope that Dan Bula does get back to work and give us some stuff, and maybe that makes it a little more surprising or exciting when we do get them, if we're not anticipating getting them every week, or maybe this will be the area where someone really shines, whether it's a cast member or a writer that we haven't really seen make their mark fully yet.
Mike, what about you? How do you feel about the pre-tapes this season?
Well, you basically said exactly what I said on our Jane Wickline preview. So check that one out. Me and John do that one. Is that there is a pre-tape vacuum right now, just waiting to be seized. So I think that's could be anybody. So that's the political answer. But I would imagine that the comeback second season of Jane Wickline could make sense for that type of audience, is if it's like we saw a Tiny Baby Shoe. So that would make sense to me. But I think the one rookie that I was completely unfamiliar with was Jeremy. So I could see him doing stuff like that from the things I've checked out today of him. Could be Veronica as well. I've seen her doing a lot of pre-tape stuff, and she does, a lot of Instagram, TikTok type videos as well. And I would shy away from saying Ben Marshall, because I think maybe they put faith in him and his chemistry with people on the stage, in the cast, and things like that. But I think the pre-tapes are going to be my what to watch this season, because it could go any direction. But I got to go with at least Jane to get a couple in there for sure.
Definitely the biggest question mark coming into the season. And some of the chat mentions the cartoons that Mikey and Streeter were doing last season. So I wonder if those...
Midnight Matinees, I hope, return.
Yeah, so you need Bula, I think, for that. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see when he does, or if he's there, and how that goes this season. Because clearly, I would think that they have a plan for the pre-tapes. So we will see what materializes throughout season 51. Let's
Sabrina
talk about
Carpenter, Midnight Matinee. Book it.
Okay. All right. We'll see. Let's talk about weekend updates. So Jillian, you mentioned before about Sarah on update and some of the people that you enjoy getting to see at the desk. For a long time this summer, we were wondering, Jost and Che, are they going to be returning? Well, they are in fact returning this season to Saturday Night Live. We have a lot of new cast members that could appear at the desk. Is there anything that you are excited to see on weekend update this season?
I really want Sarah to continue doing her not at the desk characters, the time she was in the dressing room, the time she was out in the audience. I really would love to see her really become someone who just goes crazy with that kind of thing and really makes it new. Like I said, Bowen going fully into his characters. And yeah, I would love to see the new like oftentimes we do get featured players at the desk kind of giving a chance to prove themselves or get to know them a little bit more if they're doing stand-up. So I'm just looking forward to a variety, because we've now lost some really good weekend update players from our exiting cast. So in their absence, I don't want to suddenly see Keenan doing some of his old standard characters. They can, come in every once in a while, but I really want to see new blood at that desk. And how they play with Che and Jost, because sometimes that is all the fun of just seeing what the dynamic is like with them.
I think one of the people I am most excited to see at the desk is Cam. I just want to know, what are they going to do? How is he going to be there? How is he going to interact with Jost and Che? We got our Cam preview coming out tomorrow here on the feed, so you'll get to see me and Sean Grant talk about that a little bit. But I think there's a lot of really interesting personalities that they need to try and find a way to fit into the desk. Mike, how do you feel about Weekend Update this year? What are you most excited about?
That was my prediction. It's going to be Keenan down the middle on Update episode 1, and Cam Patterson making his debut, a la Pete, Kyle, Cecily, Michael Longfellow. So I think we're going to see that, because the eyeballs looking for Cam. Maybe we don't see him. He starts slow in live sketch. He's got to get his feet wet and kind of get into that world. But putting him at the Update desk week 1 is such just seems like a savvy move, because let him shine there and kind of oh, is this the new SNL? Is it edgy? Is it a little bit more Kill Tony friendly? We saw with Shane Gillis, who's a friend of that show and a friend of SNL now, that people do get excited for that type of stuff, and it does go viral. So that's kind of my prediction. What am I excited for? I would say more weird stuff like Andrew Dismukes with his puppet dad. I want to see more of that. I want to see more pairings like we saw with Jane and Marcelo. Just fun. Or we saw with Punky and Mikey a couple years ago as themselves. Little meta, little kind of like you wouldn't expect them to be together on the update. So I love that type of stuff. So that's what I'm excited for personally.
I'm also excited to see Tommy at the desk and see like how he compares to some of the stand-ups over the last few years. I mean, obviously we need to judge him on his own, but clearly he's going to have an opportunity there to perform a little bit. I think Ashley had that Joanne Fabrics thing towards the end of the year. Oh, man, I mean, I'm excited to see what she's going to do over there. I saw our friend Ellis in the chat mentions that Ashley could fill some of the void of some of those Heidi updates that we were getting. So I think that's a pretty good fit there to see. Also, you mentioned Mikey on update. Mikey was in some update stuff in the second half of the year, which was a very unusual place to see him. And I do wonder if he has an interest in continuing to do that this season. That'll be something that'll be interesting to watch.
Lord Gaga.
Yeah. Or the guy who walked into the spider web.
Yeah.
There was some good stuff there.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. Anything on Jost and Shay, Mike? I mean, them coming back again. I think we're probably done predicting when they're going to go. So are they going to be the
No, I'll
anchors
probably
forever?
keep doing it, John. I mean, it's
Okay.
kind of my shtick at this point. And I really do, just to get this on the record, I think I was right that Michael Longfellow would have got that spot had Jost and Shay left. So I'll put that out there. I know it's kind of like, well, he just probably got fired, but it's a weird time right now. We talked about ratings a lot tonight, especially by me. So I apologize. But I think that would have been the move. And when Jost and Shay said, yeah, we're going to come back, they go, okay, Michael Longfellow, like, you're done waiting in the wings for this. So I would say that as an SNL fan, I'm disappointed that we're going to get more of that. But when I have my TV on Saturday night and Jost and Shay come on, I'm going to be, so excited. So I can't say a single bad thing. They're my favorite update anchors, of my lifetime anyway. So who could be mad at that? But here we go again. Jost and Shay back on our screens.
Yeah, and I'll just say I'm not 100% sure that he wasn't in the mix as well, but that's just me. Jillian, anything
who
you
was in
want
the
to
mix? What do you mean?
That I'm not 100% sure that Longfellow like never had a shot at it either. Like I think that he
I will,
as we'll have to talk to him about it.
But I'll take that to my grave. I beat that drum long enough.
Yeah. Jillian, how do you feel about Jost and Shay coming back once again?
So actually at the end of last season, just because in journalism, you got to be fast and you got to be prepared. So I did a bunch of pre-writes on everyone who I was pretty sure would be leaving or had the best chance of announcing their departure in that finale. And that was the very first one I did was Jost and Shay together. I didn't think there was any way that only one would stay, but I did individual ones just in case. And then when it came time for felt like cast announcements would start happening this summer. It was the first one I dusted off to make sure I had ready to go. And then we had Scarlett Johansson in our Toronto Film Festival studio where one of my colleagues was interviewing her about Eleanor the Great and asked, oh, is Colin getting ready to go back to work at 30 Rock? And she said yes. And so we were the ones that broke that he was staying. And I was just completely shocked that was a pre-write that I was not using this season. That said, I guess if we had the true cast shakeup that I was hoping for after season 50, I would have been like, okay, we'll keep them around for a little bit of stability. Or if it had been the change up that we saw of a little bit of change up and not massive overhaul, but the weekend update was the desk that we saw change, I would have been happier about it, I guess. But I mean, I can't say that I'm disappointed at them staying because they're good and we have so many new people that can come through the weekend update desk and at least have solid people to play off of. But I am really excited for some new blood at the desk too.
Yeah, I think that what is hard for longtime fans of the show is that generally when the show goes from era to era, there are weekend update anchors that change and that feel associated with particular eras. But when you have, Jost and Shay being there for so long, and then there's so much other movement at the show throughout their tenure, it's hard to parse through in your mind how to feel about it, because we're all those, like, we all have those brains where we try and make sense of a large amount of data and then like divide it in your head of like, how do I feel about this season versus others, and how do I categorize it all? So for me, I've been long saying that I feel like 48 to 50 is its own mini era of the show. Very similar to how, if you're like a huge fan of the show, you would know like 28 to 30 sort of feels that same way. I feel very similar about this one. I don't know that 51 is going to be 31, but I do feel like 51 is going to feel a lot different, except for Update, which is going to feel very similar to what we just saw. So I only wish for the change, because I think that having the show feel fresh in that sense would be huge for the fans. But otherwise, I have to give it up that they are still probably the greatest Update pairing in the show's history. And they continue to make a really impactful mark on not only the show, but outside the show as well, with all of the joke swaps and things that they say. Like, I do think that given everything that's happening in late night, it would be very scary for the show to have a rookie Update anchor hosting or hosting Update this weekend. Like, I think having Jost and Shay there as stability is sort of important for the show. So despite my reservations, Mike, I do think having them there sets the groundwork for an important weekend at Saturday Night Live.
I think that's exactly why they're there, to be honest. It's just, it probably, in a different time, or if Kamala Harris had won the election and not Trump, then it could be more of a little milder climate than it is now, where you could kind of do a new type of Update. Like, we saw like how Seth's Update kind of got different than when he was with Amy and, or Tina and Amy post Fallon. So I think that now you want that to be, again, the clicks, but also to be a more of an authority to deliver those punchlines, and not somebody who's like, is that okay? So I think that's what's happening. But the crazy thing is that, Jost and Shay together, this is their 12th season. It's like 24% of the seasons that they've done this. So what a run it's been. So whenever it ends, but at this point, it's September. We're 8 months into Trump 2.0. Speaking of predicting their exit, there's no prediction now as far as they could have to stay through this presidency, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Jillian, do you feel like part of the reason that they were kept on is that Lorne maybe sees them as, the voice of the show, and that there is this veteran presence that he feels like is being represented on screen at a time when the show really needs it?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who watch SNL for Weekend Update. That is their favorite part. They really, despite having other late night hosts that fill that same sort of slot, that is what they are looking for those jokes, those takes on politics. So I think, yeah, if I'm Lorne, maybe that is a concern of changing that right now. But I don't know. Let's get them in there. Let's get a mentor program going, have them train someone up, and winter finale, introduce the new guys.
I think we need to not hold our breath too much longer for this, but we'll see what happens here. Mike, do you have any other predictions about any aspect of the show that you want to throw out there while we're doing this right now before the season starts?
That's a big question, John. I think that there's going to be, and this is a comment to the show, that there'll be some early breakouts, which is kind of what I hope for. We saw it with Marcelo, Michael, and Devin in there. They were all an Update in the first 3 shows. We didn't see Molly till the end. We didn't see Chloe Trost at the desk, but other eras like Aristotle and Sarah were early debuts. So I know I'm still thinking about Update, but I think that will be a thing that we'll see. I mean, we haven't really talked about Tommy a lot, but I think that I did some Tommy research, and I think maybe Lauren sees a little bit of like Mulaney in him. And he has that kind of like younger, but he's a little safer, maybe, at least in his material that I've watched leading up to this podcast. So that could be something about like more of those premises. Like if you listen to his stand-up, it's like a kind of a Mulaney style premise setups. So for my prediction for him anyway, so just because we didn't talk about him too much. And then Kenan Thompson let's see what happens with him, because I'll be on Keenan watch, as I always am on By the Numbers. And if we get a what up with that in the first half, then all bets are off, because we haven't seen it since the at home, right?
So Snake is 47 actually, but yeah.
All right, we saw that because they brought back Vance, right? Running around, doing the running man rather. So I'm looking forward to seeing what is Keenan in season 51. And what is Chloe Fineman in 51? And what is Bowen Yang's ceiling? Because he seems to keep breaking it every year. And he's probably my favorite cast member in this current cast. Just macro, 10,000 feet level. And I want to see where Bowen's going to go. So I'm very excited for Bowen this season.
Jillian, anything else you're excited about, or any other predictions you have for 51?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we do get Wicked stars in there hosting, musical guesting. I'd love to see Cynthia Erivo in there, and playing off of Bowen. They are having, the sequels coming out at the end of the year. Before that, NBC is doing a big live, or not live, pre-taped special in November. So I would like to see that, and where Bowen just completely feels at home and can own the show. Yeah, Keenan, that was the last pre-write that I did, or I was like, I'll just have this, it'll happen one day, maybe while I'm still alive or still in this business. But the premiere is the anniversary of his first ever show 22 years later. So I am kind of interested to see what he ends up doing, because he was on Ego's podcast, when was that, earlier this year, and talking about how one of his saddest things about staying around that long is that you have to say goodbye to so many people. And I don't know, he's got to hit his limit on that at some point, I would think. So yeah, I mean, I am excited to see host wise. I want new blood in there, but there are also people I would love to see Steve Martin host again, so he can tie with Alec Baldwin. I think it'd be a lot of fun if it was the Only Murders trio. I would love to see them at some point this season too.
I think the 1,000th episode in February is probably a really good spot for something like that. Mike, I know you're excited for that one as well.
Definitely. I got to renew my prediction, because NBC has Super Bowl 60 and the Winter Olympics. So let's get some SNL excitement in with that in that time of the year, because I just also hope they acknowledge it. I think 1,000 episodes is a really cool benchmark for this show, and it's different than Today's Show or Tonight Show or something like that, where it's 1,000 episodes, 1,000 episodes full of sketches and hosts and musical guests. So I hope they acknowledge that, and that'll be really exciting, because after SNL 50, the actual 50th anniversary and 1,000 episodes, it's pretty bleak for things to really talk about. That's a big round number. So hopefully.
I think the thing that I'm most excited about in season 51 is seeing if the show looks different structurally. I think that, I keyed into something that Lauren said at the Emmys, which is that part of the reason that they hired some of the new hires that they did is that they're thinking about the next generation of comedy, where people are watching comedy and what they're watching. They're watching on their phones, short sketches. They're going on TikTok. They're watching Dropout, places like that. They're going to watch, Kill Tony and Cam, like all of these things that we've seen visual evidence right now of where they've gone to hire people from. Makes me feel like that is what they want to bring into the show. So I do wonder if the TikTokification of the show continues to persist in a way. Do we end up seeing shorter sketches because of that? Do they build sketches that are more vertical based in a way, even though it does happen on NBC? There are things that I think about that SNL may be trying to do to appeal to a new generation, because that they know that the show is, the watchers of the show are not just us who have watched for 50 years, but they're converting new people into the show. So I think that is something to really key into for season 51, as far as part of this new era, as what will define 51 forward. It could be how the show is created for the future. Mike, you got anything else?
Just that I'll be counting, how long the sketches are, because It is interesting. It's a great point to bring up. The run times of the segments actually got 16 seconds longer from 50 versus 49. Average runtime was 4 minutes 54 and 49, and it was 5:10 and 50 just overall. So that's, treating weekend update and pre-tapes the same way. But that's interesting because we talked a lot about that Papyrus 2 on YouTube following the show, and whoa, is SNL going to do this where they're producing a show after the show, and not putting it in the live broadcast? Is this going to be a new era of this thing? Are they going to be creating more content for their Instagram page with the cast, midweek, more behind the scenes? Because SNL is not known for that, doing this type of peeling back the curtain at all, because, we just seen it more because of social media, but just maintaining relevancy in the type of classy SNL way, but being modern is a really weird cocktail. So it's going to be super interesting to see if that comes true, John.
That's the thing I'm most fascinated to check out throughout the season and how it does feel moving forward. So this is your primer for everything you need to know about SNL season 51 coming up here in the next few days. So we have been doing all of our cast previews. In case you want to know more about any of the 17 cast members, we have them out every single day. We'll have a couple more, and then that'll prepare you for our draft on Thursday nights, where I will be live with 7 other podcasters as we get ready to do battle and draft these cast members to see who will have the most amount of sketch appearances this season, which team will come together and win it all. That'll be Thursday night live here on the channel at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, we will be live immediately after the premiere with Bad Bunny and Doja Cat, and then our roundtable and By the Numbers next week. So full coverage of everything SNL season 51. To never miss anything here at the SNN, subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And you could follow us on all social platforms at the SNL Network. Jillian, I love having you back on the show here today and getting to hear all of your thoughts. So thanks for joining us. And please tell the listeners where they could check out all the incredible work you have going on at EW.
Thank you. Yes. Go over to Entertainment Weekly, EW.com. We've got plenty more coverage. I did an interview with Sherry O'Terry earlier this year for our special 90s issue, and I've been saving some of the stories that I'm going to be rolling out probably the weekends when we don't have SNL. Some really great stories, some unexpected interactions from the past. So please be looking out for that, and our ongoing coverage of every episode. Andy Hogland will be recapping for us. He's always got some special alum answering questions and joining him for those. So tons of coverage, and you can follow me at Jillian SED on social media as well.
Can't wait to read those Sherry articles. I love her so much. So I'm looking forward to all of that. Mike Murray, what a blast to be back here podcasting with you for your 6th season here on the network. So appreciate you joining us. Anything you would like to say to our listeners as we head into season 51?
As always, thank you to the listeners. We wouldn't be here without you. And much like we talk about SNL reinventing itself, getting fresher, getting sleeker, a little bit more aerodynamic, By the Numbers, same way. Every year, try to kind of get more what the fans want. So if you have a stat idea or you think I should talk about something more, hit me up at SNL Mike Murray. It's a ton of fun to do that for everybody and to talk about it. So tune into By the Numbers, 8 p.m. on Wednesdays, and it's going to be a wild ride as always. We never know how it's going to finish at the end, and it becomes like a very tight race. So anyone's game this year.
So thanks to Mike and Jillian for joining us and all of their thoughtful commentary here tonight. Thanks for everyone for being on the live chat. If you're watching this after the fact or you're listening on the audio feed, you're missing a very fun live chat that we have here each and every time we go live. So come and meet some new friends and talk about Saturday Night Live. I want to thank Late Nighter for being our presenting partner for the show here today. And on behalf of everyone here at the SNN, my name is Jon Schneider, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.